Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick on this day before Thanksgiving, National Opt-Out Day, and we're hoping that most people, in fact, do not opt out. Go through the scanner, get on the plane, and get off to Grandma's house and enjoy your Thanksgiving. Gary Austin is in the newsroom. Amanda K. Wall in studio with us in Spartan garb. We did talk about this a little bit yesterday, that we wanted to show our school spirit and wear our MSU wear into the studio today. You will notice I'm dressed in Lions blue. I've even got a little trim of black on it to reflect the modern nature of the uniform, which now includes a bit of black piping. The thing of it is, I can't wear MSU garb, or really any sports team's garb, because I can't be a fan anymore. You give up that right to be a fan when you step into the press box. But I did have this shirt, and so the Lions are, of course, playing their Thanksgiving game tomorrow. We'd like to see them win. We'd like to see them do well, but...
Well, after 8 years of schooling, I don't think I'll ever give up my ability to wear Spartan garb.
I want to tell you something. When I went to Michigan State, I was a great fan. I actually won Michigan State a football game back in, I think it was like 1981, against Wisconsin. They were getting beat in the second half, and I was in the west upper stands. And people were sitting on their hands, and I said, we can't have this. This is when the team needs the fans. Mm-hmm. So I actually got a cheer going that spread throughout the west uppers, soon enough picked up by the whole stadium. Just your basic go green, go white. And the team turned things around, won that football game, and I credited myself for winning that football game for Michigan State.
So we need you this weekend.
In front of my TV, more correctly, I'll be in front of my computer. I've fallen in love with the HD, which I get on the computer. And so I was telling my wife, Jeannie, that sometimes I find myself watching sporting events that I don't even care about just because it's in HD. And that was the case last night. I was watching Miami of Ohio play Temple in a college football game. They've built a beautiful football stadium down there at Miami University, which is just a little bit north of Cincinnati. And Spartan Insiders will remember Mike Pearson, who used to be the assistant sports director at Michigan State. Great guy. Went on to be the SID at Illinois, and then took a job with a publishing company. He's back as the sports information director now. He's the SID for Miami of Ohio. And the thing that really struck me, it was kind of sad, beautiful stadium. Miami's in contention for the MAC title. I can't remember if they play in the East or the West. And the crowd numbered, I think, maybe 2,000 people. I mean, just vast areas of empty seats in that stadium. But it was a good football game. Some kid from Miami of Ohio turned in a 97-yard run when Miami was backed up on their own goal line in the fourth quarter. So actually it was a pretty good game, and they beat Temple, and now they've got a shot at that MAC championship. Is Gary Austin standing by in the newsroom?
I am, Rich.
Well, Gary.
I tell you got these sports stories. Rich, you've also authored some books as well. And tell us about that. I mean, your experience here in sports is wide and varied. You've talked a lot about your experiences, however, not a lot about your books. Tell us about that.
Well, I wrote the Gods of Olympia Stadium a few years ago, and I got the idea for this. Basically, what I did was I interviewed guys I ended up interviewing maybe 3 dozen guys that had played in the National Hockey League or been associated with the National Hockey League in the 1940s and the 50s. And I got the idea from a book that I got as a birthday present when I was a little boy.
Glory of Their Times.
Which was written, oddly enough, by a guy who taught economics at Michigan State University.
Lawrence Ritter.
Exactly.
It is a great book, Rich.
It really is.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
That is terrific. I mean, he did the exact same thing in the early 1960s.
Right.
It was published in 66.
Exactly,
And he traveled around, and these were ball players who were nearing the end of their lives at their time, guys who played at the turn of the century, so they were well into their 70s and 80s, and he chronicled, Rich, when it comes to baseball books, that's an A+.
Well, it starts off with the greatest story. I believe it's each player is telling their story in their own words, and it starts out with Rube Waddell, who was a semi-pro pitcher. He's like 17, 18 years old, pitching in Cleveland, and he gets a telegram from the New York Giants saying, "We want you to come pitch for us and meet us in Chicago. There'll be a train ticket at the station." And Rube Waddell has never been away from home in his life. And he goes to the train station, gets on the train, and goes to Chicago. And train travel in those days was dirty. You get covered with soot while you're on the train. So he gets off in Chicago. It's the middle of the night. He doesn't know where the Giants are staying. He doesn't know where the ballpark is. I don't think Wrigley Field hadn't been built yet. It's about 1900. And he's wandering the streets, and he comes upon a firehouse. And there's a fire going in the pot-bellied stove, and the place was empty. The firemen were out on a run. And so he goes and lays down next to that pot-bellied stove, and he falls asleep. And the firemen come back, and they roust him. They think he's a bum. And he goes, no, I'm Rube Waddell. I pitch for the Giants. And they don't believe him, but they let him spend the night there in the firehouse, and the next morning they take him to the ballpark, and the firemen are stunned to learn that, in fact, he does pitch for the Giants. And then Rube said that every year thereafter, when the Giants went to Chicago, he would make it a point to go visit his buddies at the firehouse and bring them to the ball game. And the story was just full of, the book, I should say, was full of great stories like that. And I just thought perhaps you could do the same thing with hockey players who had played 50 years earlier. And so that's what I did. I just and the best thing was the first player I interviewed was Bill Gadsby, and he, in the course of telling his story, mentioned the names of maybe 24 other players. And so I would set to work, a reporter by trade, and track these guys down. And I'd call them on the phone, and I'd say, I'm Rich Kincaid, I'm working on this book. Well, they wouldn't know me from Adam. But as soon as I said, Bill Gadsby mentioned your name, oh, Bill, how's he doing and everything. And then they were all good with sitting down and conducting an interview with me. I didn't have a single player. I interviewed John Beliveau and, Teddy Lindsay. And I just, long list of the guys who, in their day, were the most famous athletes in the national. A single one of them said no. And meeting some the greatest experience of my life. So it's the gods.
That is neat.
Yeah, it was. It was
is
just
really
great fun.
So you walked in, sat down with these guys, and then just asked a question, and then sat back, and they just let it fly.
I really had only one question to ask, and it was, tell me what it was like.
Oh,
and
that's neat.
It really was. And I remember, for example, Red Kelly, who was a great Red Wings defenseman in the 1950s, won 4 Stanley Cups with Detroit, and then the GM of Detroit, Jack Adams, at the time, got mad at him. This was the best defenseman in the National Hockey League, and Adams got mad at him about some story that had appeared in the newspaper. And so he up and traded him. Kelly says, well, I quit. I'm going to quit instead. And that's what he does. And he gets threatening calls from the NHL Commissioner Clarence Campbell saying, if you don't report, you're going to be suspended for life. You'll never have anything to do with hockey ever again. And Red Kelly says, fine, and goes to work at his summer job, because in those days players didn't make enough to support themselves on hockey alone. They all had to have summer jobs. But anyways, he wound up heading off to Toronto. Another deal was struck. He went to Toronto, won 4 more Stanley Cups with the Maple Leafs, and Red Kelly's dad used to come to Wings games at Olympia when Toronto was in town. And one day he bumps into Jack Adams. He says, the Stanley Cup just seems to follow that kid around, doesn't it?
That's neat. Well, this is Original Six, right? I mean, this is when hockey was really in its heyday. Okay, got to get your plug in here. The name of the book?
It's The Gods of Olympia Stadium.
And where do we get it?
That's a good
Amazon.
question. Amazon's got it, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I saw it on there the other day, in fact.
Oh, well, there
so
we go.
Good.
All right.
A plus. Very
I
good.
appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk. The best part about that interview with Red Kelly, though, a couple of things. First off, when we sat down, his wife joined us, Andra Kelly, who, as it turns out, was a member of the U.S. figure skating team in 1952.
Oh.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so you
that's
think
neat.
that they had, and she goes, he wore number 4, and we had 4 kids, and things. Their whole life seemed to revolve around that number 4. But when I had originally set up the interview with Red Kelly, we were going to do it on a given day, and I called a few days in advance to confirm. And Red says to me, "Oh, I forgot. I've got this golf outing that I have to play on that day. I can't do it. We'll have to reschedule." So I set it up for the following Saturday. Well, I pull up in front of his house, and Red Kelly, you have to understand, is not only he was a player, he was a coach, he was a member of Parliament in Canada. He's got the Order of Canada, which is their highest civilian award. He's quite a guy. And I pull up in front of his house, and I'm getting my tape recorder and everything out of the car, and he comes out on the porch, and he's looking at me. Again, he doesn't know who I am, and he's a little, you can see he's a little concerned, maybe be the word, And as I approached the porch, I said to him, "So how'd you do in the golf tournament last week?" And his face lights up, and he goes, "We won it. We've been playing in that thing for 25 years, and we finally won it." So you want to get off on the right foot, and that just worked out perfectly. And then, like I said, with all of these guys, it was just like talking hockey with your grandfather, assuming your grandfather had played in the National Hockey League. And here's one quick story. Teddy Lindsay. Actually, his dad played in the NHL the first year there was an NHL back in 1917. And
is that Ted Lindsay's dad was an NHL star as
he played 1 year in the NHL. He was a goaltender. And it turns out the reason he left the NHL after that first season was that he could make more money in mining than he could playing hockey. So he quit hockey and went to work in the mines.
That's
and Ted
great.
Lindsay said that had hockey not worked out for him. He fully expected he would have spent his entire life as a minor. So, yeah, these guys they were just great. So.
Isn't that neat? Well, they say one way you can really endear yourself to somebody, even a total stranger, ask them about something that interests them and appear interest yourself in what they're and
well, there we go.
They'll talk, and that's a great technique. Like your, how's your golf game? And we know hockey players love playing golf. I mean, they have those soft. It's their thing.
There we go.
That's a neat technique. Very good, Rich.
All right, thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. All right, we'll talk to you a little later on. Amanda, I forgot. What do we got coming up? Ken Dallafor. We're going to talk about the Lions Thanksgiving Day game coming up next. And we got, that stuff coming up, too, as well. All right, Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick, and we'll continue in just a moment. Well, that part's accurate. Michael Patrick in Hawaii. Rich Kincaid here for Michael Patrick, who will be back with you on Monday. Well, the Lions' annual appearance on national television, it has come to this for the last several seasons for Detroit. They never get on Sunday Night Football. They never get Monday Night Football. They don't make the playoffs. So the only time they are on national television at all is on Thanksgiving Day. Of course, that's tomorrow, and the Lions will be home to take on the New England Patriots. I believe it's the 71st annual Thanksgiving Day Classic at Ford Field. And joining us right now, former Lions player, which makes him an expert, and currently Senior Vice President of Group Sales and Corporate Marketing for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, our old friend Ken Dallafor. And Ken, what was it like? What makes the Thanksgiving Day special for the players?
Well, as you said in your intro, I think it's the fact that you're on national TV and the entire country's watching you and the league. And the other part is that you usually have a lot of friends and family in, and you have festivities after the game, and so there's just a different excitement for that entire game and preparation coming into it.
Used to be that the Lions were known for pulling the upsets on Thanksgiving Day. Not so much lately, but it has happened. And I would guess that it would be for the reasons that you just outlined. The players are just a little bit more up, if you will, for that particular game.
Yeah, it's not happened in recent years, but that's been part of the tradition of the Lions. They get to play at home on a short week. The other team has to travel, and all of those factors come into play, and that usually works favorably for the Lions.
Were they still pulling the turkey prank when you were with the team?
Oh, absolutely. The rookies and the free turkey, go get your free turkey, and, unbelievable. As much as they've publicized that, some of that stuff still works, and some of the hazing and little games they play on rookies, a lot of fun.
See, I'm thinking nowadays it probably wouldn't work because the players make so much money. I mean, who cares if they're going to save $20 or $30 on a turkey? But and even before you played, I mean, a turkey was a valuable thing, and the way it would work for people who aren't in full. Well, tell us how it worked, Ken.
Rich, I don't know if it matters how much money people make if they're cheap and they're looking for a free deal.
Right.
They're looking for that free lunch, and I don't think income level necessarily has to do anything with that. So they still get the wool pulled over their eyes a bit.
There we go. And what the veterans would do would be they'd tell the rookies, if you go to such and such store, usually located a couple of miles from the wherever the team was practicing at the time in the days at Tiger Stadium, be somewhere down there, mark it down in Detroit somewhere, or when they were at the Silverdome, it'd be someplace in Pontiac a couple miles away. They would tell the rookies, go to the store and get your free turkey. They'll give you a turkey because you're a Lion, and the player would get there, and there'd be a nicely wrapped package waiting for the player, who would take it home and unwrap it and find that it was a block of ice.
Yeah, and many had been had on those deals.
Absolutely. Well, here we are. Lions are at 2-8. We talked about this just a couple of days ago. That it could have been something tomorrow had the Lions held on to that lead against the Jets and maybe used that to springboard their way to victories over teams they should have beaten, such as a winless Buffalo and a slumping Dallas Cowboys team. And there actually would have been a reasonable amount of excitement in town had the Lions gone into this one tomorrow 5-5.
Yeah, I think that's true, but that's not the case. But I really think something about this team, they have a lot of fight in them. I think the coaching staff imposes that, and they sort of work together in that way. So there's not any quit in this team. I really believe that. A lot of character players now on this team, and that's the thing that's going to eventually get them over the hump. And I think they'll come out and play as if they were 5-5 or 2-8. They're going to play with the same intensity this game on Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we're hitting the point here where just strange things are starting to happen to them. And I'm thinking about that play on Sunday against Dallas where all they're trying to do is down the football, and it takes a perfect hop to the Dallas player, and bang, you're looking at a 97-yard touchdown the other way. I mean, that's just fluky stuff now that's killing them.
Yeah, you know what happens is the same thing happens with penalties. You start getting penalties, and they start working against you. Breaks work against you, and that's a shift of momentum. Teams that are winning, those things don't happen to. Injuries don't happen to winning teams. So once you get all those things going in the right direction, I don't know if it's karma or whatever it is, but those things start working in your favor. And right now, when you're losing like the Lions have been, and you're trying to get over the hump, those things are not working to their advantage in any game. It seems like in most cases. So.
Yeah, it's got to be mentally tough at this time of year, don't you think? I mean, well, you would know. You've had years where the team didn't do as well as you wanted it to.
Right. Well, in those years, and then on the other hand, we had a year we went 13-6 and won our division and went on to the NFC Championship game in '91. And I can tell you that year everything went right, and we had just to get the right bounce on the ball when it went on the ground, you'd get a favorable call, and sometimes afterward, reflecting, you'd scratch your head and go, "Wow, how did we get so lucky?" But I think a lot of that happens when the character of the team, the work, the right talents on the team, the right staff, the right chemistry, and all those things start coming together. And you'll see it in a team like New England. You'll see it in a team like the Jets right now. So those things work in favor of those teams all the time.
Another thing you had working in your favor in '91 was a guy named Barry Sanders. I remember virtually after every football game, Wayne Fonts coming in to address the media, and he would say, "Give the ball to Barry," because Barry would, he'd have 10 carries and maybe have negative yards on a few of them, but then he'd bust an 80-yarder. I mean, you could just count on it.
Yeah, that was the wild and crazy thing about it. But you give him the ball enough times, and he's gonna break the back of the defense and do something enormous. And that was always the fun thing about Barry.
I remember that playoff game against Dallas, and it sticks out of my mind because it turns out it's the last playoff game that the Lions have won. And you have to go back all the way to '91 for it. But it was at the Silverdome, and on Detroit's first offensive play, it was like a 75-yard touchdown pass. And boy, you talk about setting the tone.
Yeah, we got out of the gate quick that day. It seems like 100 years ago now, and but nonetheless, that was a fun game and very memorable. And it kind of goes with what I was saying. When everything's going right for you, you'll find a way to set the tone. You'll find a way to get all the breaks in the game, and that was just another example of it.
Brad Childress fired this week by the Minnesota Vikings. Here's a guy that led his team twice in 4 years to the NFC Championship game, including last season. And bang, here we are just past the midway point of the following season, and he finds himself out of a job.
Yeah, it's the old saying in baseball, yesterday's home runs don't win today's games, and it's what have you done for me lately? And I think what happened with Childress is he lost control of the team in the locker room. It was very clear. He went against some of the owner's wishes, and you have to be almost perfect in your win-loss column to be able to do that kind of stuff and expect. So I think his time was shortened just in losing the locker room. It doesn't matter what you did last year. It's here and now, and that's the kind of nature of the game, and football is that kind of business.
Did he lose the locker room because he lost Brett Favre? Because it seemed that they were feuding. It might not have been public, but you could just sort of tell from what was going on the sidelines and whatnot that those two weren't getting along, didn't seem to be getting along.
Well, one of the things you see in great coaches, and you can use Parcells, you can use Joe Gibbs, there wasn't any sort of double standards for people. And I think one of the things that might have torn that team apart was that Brett Favre, there was a double standard around how he got treated. And there is, and it was very evident. But guys will allow that to happen as long as it's going to create wins and opportunities to win a Super Bowl. When it doesn't, the wheels come off that wagon really quick, and that's where you get into this double standard where it destroys the fabric of a team and the character of a team. And I think that's what you witnessed in Minnesota because they're a very talented bunch.
Is this a simple case of Brett Favre with one too many comebacks?
Well, I would have thought that 4 times ago, Rich.
Right, exactly, yeah.
I mean, it appears that way, but after the season he had last year, you thought, why not? The magic, the magic is still there, and let's give it another go.
Absolutely. Well, it didn't work out this year for the Minnesota Vikings. I was listening to Peter King on Sunday Night Football, and he came right out and said he thinks Green Bay is the best team in the National Football League. Your thoughts on that?
Well, they're playing at that level. Their quarterback is at the peak of his game, and they seem to have the pieces on the field. But time will tell, and I think that's a fair statement. I would think some would tell you the Eagles are the best team right now in the NFC, and you just you have to let it all play out and see what happens. But the Packers are playing at a high level right now.
Boy, I'll tell you what, I was surprised, frankly, the Lions didn't go after Michael Vick when he became available. It wouldn't have cost them anything to get him. And I was talking to a friend of mine who says, yeah, but they don't want the controversy. Well, the man paid his dues, right? He paid his debt to society, and now he's starring for somebody else. And I keep thinking to myself, boy, it could have been here.
Yeah, but you have to remember there were 31 other teams as well, or 30 other teams that passed on him as well, like the Lions did. And in light of the situation, it was a tough call, and the bet paid off. That could have worked against him, but the reality is the Eagles didn't have a lot at stake. It didn't cost them anything to bring him on, and if you didn't turn around and play well and be a good citizen, a good character guy in their locker room, you could have easily done away with them. From a football standpoint, you could have cut him and released him.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, Rich. There wasn't a big cost to that bet, and that bet's paid off for the Eagles.
Yeah, big time indeed. All right, Ken, thanks very much. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and enjoy the game tomorrow. Go Lions, and then with a lot of college football coming up on Saturday, that'll be fun as well.
Hey, Rich, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you these days. Michael Patrick's been out of the station and off the continent over in Hawaii. So,
there we go.
Have a great Thanksgiving, and thanks for having me on.
You bet, Ken. It was great. Appreciate it. All right, Ken Dallafor of Michigan Blue Cross Blue Shield, the former member of the Detroit Lions. We're going to take a break and come back with more on MPS in the Morning in just a moment. MPS in the Morning, Rich Kincaid filling in for Michael on this Giving Eve. Later on this morning, we will be asking you to tell us what it is you are thankful for. Mull that over and give us a call a little later on at 888-900-9966. That number to the studio is 888-900-9966. Just what is it that you are thankful for this Thanksgiving of 2010? The Daily Leader is sponsored by Northwood University, celebrating 50 years of producing leaders. We're going to make our leader of the day today, Victor Martinez, who has reportedly, it's not official yet, but it's being reported by everybody, so you can be assured it's going to happen. Victor Martinez has signed a 4-year, $50 million contract with the Tigers. I did the math on that. That works out to approximately $12.5 million a year. Martinez, if you carry out his annual statistics over a full 162-game schedule, you can expect he will hit 300. That is his career average. He's a 300 hitter. He averages 28 home runs and 103 RBI. And I was talking with somebody at Coach D'Antonio's presser yesterday. I don't know who it was, but he was snotty. He goes, I don't think he's going to catch. And I looked up his rate. He caught over 100 games last year, so I think he is going to catch. And I think Alex Avila is going to be the backup catcher. But at any rate, Victor Martinez is the newest member of the Detroit Tigers. Time for the latest on the Battle of the Straits going on up in Mackinac. We're joined by Chris Shepler, who runs one of the ferry services up there, Shepler's Mackinac Island Ferry. Chris, good morning to you. Why are they trying to run you out of business, and are they, in fact? It's the city of St. Ignace with which you're having the dispute, correct?
Well, no. It's first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
And happy Thanksgiving to you.
Sure, you too. Thanks.
and I apologize for my voice. I've got a little cold here that I'm trying to get rid of. But it is the city of Mackinac Island that dispute is over.
Okay. Well, and the dispute is that Mackinac Island is trying to cut down the number of ferry companies or the number of ferries that travel between the mainland and the island. What's going on?
Well, yeah, they have reserved the right to only give one exclusive franchise to Mackinac Island, and they also had all three ferryboat companies present a proposal to the city of Mackinac Island, which we all did. And in those proposals, ours was, basically doing what we've always done, and the Northern Ferry Company, which was a combination of Star and Arnold Line that came together to form one company. They were trying to get a franchise, an exclusive franchise, a monopoly, if you will. Since then, the Mackinac Island City Council has gone into a couple of meetings and sessions that now where we are with this whole thing is that the Mackinac Island City Council has granted, well, they denied all the proposals that were given back a month ago. It was unanimously voted upon and denied all those proposals. So then last Monday, or I should say this past Monday, just a couple of days ago, we met again in session, and they stated that they were going to give all three ferryboat companies, or they were going to issue three non-exclusive franchises. Now, which is a big hurdle for us, except for that they didn't give us the terms and conditions in which they were going to grant those franchises. And they also said that each ferry company had to make sure that we complied with each and every one of those terms and conditions. And again, we have not seen those terms and conditions as of yet.
Hard to comply with something you don't know what it is you're to comply with. There's a nice sentence.
Well, yeah, and it makes sense. That sentence does.
Yeah.
It is. It's been it's just been a very difficult time for us, and depending on what those terms and conditions come out to be, we're going to have to be very aggressive in our business plan. We're going to have to be very aggressive in our budget, and again, not knowing what those terms and conditions are, what we're going to agree to yet. We don't know that yet. It is very difficult for us to move forward with the 2011 season.
How many employees do you have?
150.
Wow. And so that's 150 people right now that don't know what the future holds for them. Any idea when this is going to be, how the time frame for resolution?
Well, we would hope that it would be sooner than later, obviously,
yeah.
but I've heard a date of January 1st, but they're not, meaning the City Council of Mackinac Island is not, they have not given us a date yet,
okay,
or what those terms and conditions
right.
are, or even
right.
a hint to what they are.
Chris, best of luck. We'll continue to follow this story, and we hope everything works out. Thanks for joining us, and have as good a Thanksgiving as you can under the circumstances.
Well, I certainly appreciate, and happy Thanksgiving to you, too.
All right. Thanks, Chris. We appreciate it. Chris Shepler of the Shepler's Line up there. The Mackinac Ferry controversy continues. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick, and we're back with more in just a moment. I got to tell you, most people will tell you the greatest day of their life was the day they got married or the day their daughter was born. I'm going to tell you something. The greatest day of my life was in November of 1974 when I was a student at Michigan State University, my first year at MSU. And the reason I went to Michigan State, because I wanted to go to a school that had Big Ten football, and I was a big Spartan fan. So, hey, I'm going to Michigan State. And had seats in the student section of the end zone when Ohio State came to town, undefeated, ranked number 1 in the nation, and Michigan State put up a fight like you wouldn't believe on that particular Saturday afternoon on national television. And Levi Jackson went 88 yards with 3 minutes and 12 seconds to go to give Michigan State a 16-13 lead. And then Ohio State drove all the way down the field. And there was a controversial play at the end where maybe they scored and maybe they didn't. One official said touchdown, another official said wave off. And it turns out Ohio State was cheating. They weren't set for the full second that one needs to be set. So it was no touchdown. But we didn't know for 45 minutes after the game had ended until they made an announcement on the PA that Michigan State had, in fact, won the football game. But I'm telling you, the best football game I've ever been to. And, gosh, I enjoyed that day. And it was nice sticking it to Ohio State and sticking it to Woody Hayes. I got to tell you that. And our guest right now wearing the scarlet and gray is Greg Landris, cardiovascular surgeon at Total Vein Care Clinic. And obviously the man when it comes to Ohio State. So you're all geeked up for Saturday.
I am. And I have some games that I've enjoyed in the past, and I remember taking my family down, my 2 young boys, my wife, to the Horseshoe to play Michigan State. Ohio State was rated number 1, and Michigan State came in there and beat them.
Was that like 97 or something?
Yeah, 97.
Yeah.
And it was just it was crushing, and Buckeye fans are different. They're just not, you just don't see the same enthusiasm up here in Michigan as they do down in Ohio. And when we left the stadium, I had to cover my wife's coat. She had a green coat on. They were turning over cars. They were burning couches out in the street. And this is just walking back to our vehicle to go.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sorry to hear, when things like that happen. Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, well, we were talking about it in the break with the Red Bull and the alcohol and whatnot. There's probably, just too much of that going on.
It is. And
Yeah.
they're just fanatics.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll fight each other just based on what kind of offense we're playing.
Sure. I don't give Michigan any chance at all on Saturday, based on simply on the fact that they have the 112th ranked defense in the FBS. I think you guys are going to. I think Ohio State's going to score 50 on Michigan, and I think Michigan, they'll score points. They got the 5th ranked offense in college football, which is remarkable to be so good on offense and so bad on defense. But I think at the end of the day, it's a track meet that Ohio State's going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be probably lopsided. I don't think they're going to score 50, but Michigan's offense is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And they can move the ball down in a few plays, and they scored a touchdown. Ohio State's just going to hold on to the ball. Tressel's that conservative, going to run the clock, holding the ball, and just kind of grind it out. I don't think he's going to be throwing a lot of points up because he doesn't want to track me.
It's a frustrating situation right now. You could wind up, theoretically, a 3-way tie for the Big Ten title this year if Michigan State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin all win. And right now, Wisconsin is rated ahead of Ohio State in the bowl championship standings, and that's going to determine the conference champion. It's a weird setup.
It is, and when they sold out the Rose Bowl, that's what they get. I mean, unfortunately, Michigan State should go to the Rose Bowl by rights. They beat everybody. If they beat Penn State on Saturday, which is not going to be an easy task in Happy Valley.
I tell people a story that I didn't experience firsthand, but that I read about from 1960 or 1961, where Ohio State won the Big Ten, and the Board of Regents, or whatever it is they call the governing body at Ohio State, voted not to accept the Rose Bowl invitation because they felt that football was becoming too big an influence on campus. And I mean, it was just jaw-dropping, and it was Woody Hayes and his assistant coach, Bo Schembechler, got the word. They were at a banquet in Cleveland, and they spent like half the night walking the streets of Cleveland, talking about this. But it's just unbelievable something like that would happen. You certainly wouldn't see that happening today.
Not today. I mean, Ohio State's athletic department right now generates $110 million a year. Think about that. That's a significant amount of cash, and most of it comes from football and basketball. So it's a machine now. It's going to be a perpetuating process for Ohio State and part of their budget that they rely on to keep the sports going.
Would you, from an Ohio State perspective, prefer that Michigan be more on an uptick? The old days when it was the Big 2, Little 8, and this game might be for the championship again?
I think the game of football has changed now. It's more of a parity across the nation. If you look at the offenses now, I mean, you can have a pretty decent offense and be in a lot of these big games. So I think there's going to be more parity than the Big 2, Little 8. And now we have Nebraska coming in. That's going to change things a lot for the Big 12.
Oh, I know. I was
Big Ten.
looking at Michigan State's schedule next year, and it's like boom, boom, Nebraska, you guys, Michigan, like on consecutive weeks. And what an introduction to the new look two-division Big Ten for certainly for Michigan State next year.
It'll be different.
All right, hate to say it, but good luck on Saturday.
Well, good luck to Michigan State. I vote for any team that's against Michigan. So, but Joe Pop, he's got quite a program down there as well.
All right, Greg Landis joining us, wearing the Ohio State colors, and okay.
Go Bucks!
Good to see you. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with Nikki Hale, our world correspondent, as we continue here on MPS in the Morning. Michael Patrick Shields will be back from Hawaii for your listening enjoyment come Monday. Gary Austin is in the newsroom. And Gary, I'm perusing this morning USA Today, the technology page.
Yeah.
And normally you would expect to see articles. Well, there is a nice piece, for example, about the electric car, that sort of thing. There's also an article in Technology today about turkeys. And here we are, Thanksgiving Eve. We haven't talked about turkeys yet.
All right.
And you might wonder what technology has to do with turkeys. I know I did.
That's
but it turns out without science, we might not have Thanksgiving at all. Did you take a guess here on the average weight? Nikki Hale, our world correspondent, is here as well. You can guess as well. A tom turkey, that's the male turkey. What is the average size in pounds of a tom turkey these days?
Now, is that living or
Living.
on the broiler?
Living,
All right.
commercially produced tom turkey.
Living before, wow, it's still alive. Okay.
So it still has its head, yes.
Average, let's see, I'll say, I'll say 20 pounds, on average.
Nikki?
I was going to go with 22, 23.
33 pounds. Yes, and it's true that they can't fly, and they're top heavy. 62% of a tom turkey's weight is in the breast. It's that breast meat that people like. And by the way, George Perlis, turkey expert George Perlis, told me last Saturday, I get to name drop, that everybody's got a secret deal with their turkeys. He says to cook it upside down. And then the juices will flow into that breast area and make the white meat juicier.
Interesting.
Well, that's his theory, and they've been doing it for years. So that's the George Perlis method. Well, anyways, here's the thing, gang. And I think this is actually why this wound up in Technology. And if we can get through this without me blushing, this will be fairly remarkable. Turns out that with all that additional weight, not only can they not fly, they can't mate. They're too top heavy, and they can't stand up. They can't link up, as it were. So here's the technology part. Enter a belt-fill breakthrough. That's the company. It's the belt-fill poultry semen extender invented by physiologist Thomas Sexton in the 1970s. It dilutes and preserves sperm outside of the turkey, allowing fewer toms to impregnate more hens. And with, thank you. Now, with this particular method, it turns out one male can inseminate 20 to 30 hens. And that is one of the reasons that the turkey business is exploding, as it were.
So you mean that's why there's enough turkeys to go around?
Well, America leads, according to this story, America leads the world in turkey consumption. We eat 17 pounds of turkey annually. Canadians are second at 10.3 pounds. The European Union, they weigh in at 8.3 pounds. So there you go.
Well, so hold on, Rich. You mean to say that the average American eats 17 pounds of turkey?
Well, see, I'm thinking I'm good for 17 pounds tomorrow alone.
Oh,
So,
goodness.
yeah. So I would have actually thought that number would be higher. But
So really,
yeah.
17 pounds. Well, I mean, turkey, it is dense. It is a dense meat, right?
Yeah.
It is heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, just eat a bunch of it and 5 o'clock Thursday afternoon. You'll know how heavy it is.
Well, there you go. I mean,
Yeah,
well, you
that'll
know,
do it.
if I think everybody does this, don't they? On Friday, you're going to be having the turkey sandwiches with cranberry sauce and the Miracle Whip, and on there'll be some sort of a turkey casserole served on Saturday, and by Sunday it should all be gone. But at any rate,
I'm sorry, is that Miracle Whip going with your sandwich?
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. That one I've never heard of.
Oh, that's delicious. Yeah,
Hey, you know, guys.
yeah,
while
everybody's
we're
got
on-
one, right?
You know, while we're on the subject here, we ought to talk about cooking and safety warnings and all that. Okay, whatever we're cooking, meats, anything, poultry, other meats, and anything that can spoil. For example, meats. If they're not cooked right, they can make us really sick. And the experts say, you know, those thermometer contraptions you stick in the turkey there and goes really deep, tells you what the temp is, not just on the outside, but way down in the inside where it really counts. So that gives us a good gauge as to where we're at as the thing is sitting in the oven there. Also, leftovers should make the trip to the fridge in less than 2 hours. And once in the fridge, they have a shelf life of no more than 4 days.
Really?
From the experts who say eating anything after that 4-day mark would be too risky.
Well, the 2-hour mark is sometimes difficult because of the tryptophan in the turkey. That's why everybody takes a nap after Thanksgiving dinner, or so they say.
Well, before you doze off, get it in the fridge.
Exactly right. Okay. Well, there we go. So
advice from the experts.
There we have it. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. All right, Nikki. This is National Opt-Out Day, the biggest travel day of the year, and the flying the ointment is these new airport scanners, and people are concerned because they're so. What's the word I'm looking for? Well, they show you how you look naked.
Right.
In photographic form, in X-ray form.
It's come back up to light, hasn't it? With all the travel going on at this time of the year.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions going around what TSA can or cannot do, really.
Well, they can do whatever they want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched Saturday Night Live on Saturday night this past weekend.
I did not.
They had the funniest sketch, I have got to tell you, about the TSA. If you ever have a chance, look it up on YouTube, so
Sure.
they have it up on there, but very, very funny. But yeah, I mean, it's going back to questioning, can the TSA really feel you up all the way? And then back to the scanners, not only does it, see you in the light that you don't want to be seen in, but is it safe?
Right.
And when you go to the dentist nowadays to have an x-ray, they sort of put a vest on you, or they'll tell you it's very low radiation.
Right.
These machines are excluding radiation, and so they're questioning people with different health concerns. Should they be, going through that? And if they can't because of a health concern, they have to be subjected now to this extensive pat-down by a TSA officer. So there's a lot of controversy, and I'm quite interested to see what Michael Patrick has to say when he comes back, because I think he's opted to go through the pat-down, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he can come back and report to it. We asked Congressman Hoekstra yesterday about the pat-down, and it turns out he was in some quote-unquote special line, and he didn't have to get a pat-down. And then my next question should have been, and it's one of those you think of in the car driving home after the show, how do I get in that line?
Right, exactly.
So because
well, in August, when I went to England, I was coming through security in England with my husband, and all of a sudden he was pulled to one side to check his bag, but I got taken away for this, not x-ray, but a different type of scan. And the only thing that was funny to me was this. I had to go down this very long corridor to get to this room by myself with this officer, and all he did the entire time was yell on his, and I mean yell, one random female. One random female, thinking to myself, wow, this is fabulous, So I'm walking down this corridor, and they made me do a really funny pose. So your legs are sort of spread apart, and then your hands like this. And then
you're like the guy
forward.
on the walk, don't walk
Exactly.
thing on the street light.
Yeah,
Sure.
so you do one like this front ways, and then one backwards, and they said, you're clear. And I'm like, clearly, yes, I think I knew that. And then we left, and that was it. And he just thanked me very much for, letting them do their little scan on their random female.
Well, see, that's part of the concern, though, is that attractive women are being singled out for the pat-down or what have you, and you would qualify in that.
No.
Yeah, so.
I don't think that's the case, but it was very interesting that they picked me over my husband, who had a bag full of equipment,
Well, yeah,
They singled me out to go do the scan and not him, and that's what our discussion was around. Okay,
yeah.
So the dude with all the equipment got to go and get his bag looked at, whereas I got the scan, so I guess they figured that maybe I was hiding something.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's underway now. I mean, flights have begun moving here in the Eastern time zone, probably have been for an hour or so, and so already the lines are no doubt long at airports. And I guess all we can do right now is speculate on how things are going out there. But if enough people, they say the pat-down takes longer than going through the scanner. So if enough people are opting out, that's slowing down security on already a slow day.
Guys, a new survey has been done on this, by the way, and this may surprise you. Washington Post, ABC News did it, and it finds most say they would give up their privacy if it meant the plane they were about to get on would be safer. 68% said, yes, privacy is not an issue if safety is a concern. However, 26% say the government is getting too intrusive. So this study finds most people say, despite the hassles, it's okay with them. That's kind of surprising, don't you think?
Well, at the other end, like I said, I was taken and I didn't make a fuss about it. I was like, you know what? They need to do it. I prefer to feel safe. It is uncomfortable. It's not great. But you know what? At the end of the day, if they can catch people, which we've heard recently, right?
Yeah,
They've caught quite a few people or things going on in the airport. I think it's safety for all.
Well, Nikki, if Rich, if enough people end up opting out today, and they get patted down instead, and they say, nope, no scanner for me, we're getting patted down, as this National Opt-Out Day is designed to do, and this is supposed to be the busiest holiday travel day of the year today. It could make for a real mess at airlines everywhere. Talk about slowing things up.
Well, it's not going to slow the airplane down. That's still going to pull away from the gate at the scheduled time. The question is whether or not you're still stuck in the security line waiting to get on.
Now that's a good point.
Yeah. So it's I mean the TSA is saying that the people that are going to be hurt here are your fellow travelers. So I'm kind of hoping that everybody just puts up with it, you know. And if there's a better way to figure it out down the road, go for it. But you know, I said, and I was only half joking at the time, when the suicide bombings were at their peak in Israel. And we're talking, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But I mean, it was something it's been going on there a long time. I said, just have everybody go around naked, okay? You can't hide a bomb if you're not wearing any clothes to hide the bomb in. And I mean, but you know, if you're in a situation, I mean, like I said, I was half joking. But if somebody get on a bus and blow up the bus and 7,500 people die, you know, that requires, in my view, some drastic measures. But anyways,
I'm sure they'll figure it out for the happiness of all.
Eventually, one would hope so. Well, you know, turning to we're out of time in our segment, so the clock just ran out on me.
There you go.
All right, nice seeing you, Nikki.
Yes, you too.
All right, thanks a lot. Back with more right after this. All right, we're joined in the studio right now by some chatty politicians. Good morning, gentlemen. State Senator Jason Allen, Republican of Traverse City, who's term limited on the way out, but we thank you for your service. And Representative Wayne Schmidt, Republican of Traverse City, joining us here in studio. Gentlemen, good morning. We were going to devote this segment to what people are thankful for this Thanksgiving, so let's go with you guys. You're here. What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for our family in this great country. I had the opportunity yesterday to be over at Selfridge Air National Guard Base talking with aviators that have been rotated into Iraq and Afghanistan, and how proud we are. Air refueling operations and what they are doing in regards to making sure that we are able to protect our
Hard
country.
to talk to our service people and not be proud to be an American. I remember one time I got to go up with the Golden Knights, the U.S. Army parachute team. Yeah, it was pretty neat. It's one of the publicity things that they have radio people do from time to time, and they were in Flint to promote an appearance at an air show. And it was in July, and it was an 85-degree day, so I showed up in shorts and a golf shirt. Well, the thing of it is, when they take you up to 35,000 feet to jump, it becomes like 38 degrees. And they were just laughing at me because they knew what was going to happen. But just being around those guys, and there was one gal, I mean, it just made you proud to be an American.
Now, did you actually jump out then?
Yeah, no. I almost said hell no. Absolutely not. No, I'm not going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. No, I got to watch them jump, and yeah. But it was, you know, it's just a great experience. Yeah.
At Selfridge, it was impressive because these are mostly Air Reserve guys. Many of them are pilots with Delta or different airlines, Master Chiefs that had been in the military before and then rotate in. We have a very, very good group of men and women protecting us.
Obviously, clearly. Yeah, yes, we do. And then, Representative, your Thanksgiving thoughts?
Just, again, very thankful for my family, thankful that I live here in Michigan, the United States. Just looking forward to a very good Thanksgiving dinner and enjoying it with my family and all my friends up in northern Michigan.
Sure. Well, some news this morning about our state of Michigan, which continues to have the second highest unemployment rate in the nation, but it did drop in October, falling not significantly, but it fell from 13% to 12.8%. That's the first decline in the unemployment rate in Michigan in 19 months. It's remarkably high, 13%. I can't remember a time when the unemployment rate in our state was that high, and for such an extended period of time. We've had a change now with Rick Snyder moving into the governor's chair, so it's your problem now, boys. What are you going to do? Well, it is, you know. So, yeah.
Well, I think, you know, as working through this process, first of all, we did not recognize the magnitude of the loss of the manufacturing jobs that would be occurring because of the auto industry. And think this through, in 2000, a third of the cars assembled in America were made in Michigan. That number's down to 22%. But unfortunately, we have a very burdensome tax policy. We have a very burdensome regulatory environment, which has made us less than attractive to bring businesses into the state. And that's why I'm really excited about Mr. Snyder and his plans.
Well, tell me about his plans, because if you're going to eliminate the small business tax, single business tax, which is what he ran on, you're going to have to you're either going to have to find revenue somewhere else, or you're going to have to cut. So what are you going to cut? Because I don't see where the revenue to replace that tax is coming from.
If you take a look at his 10-point plan, first of all, the aspect of reinvigorating cities we know that it's been very attractive to it's been difficult to attract entrepreneurs into our communities because of the state of our cities. Number two, then, is this aspect of going through and restructuring government. And if you take a look at in northern Michigan, and Wayne has the same situation, is that for every, I think there's an elected official for every 171 people in northern Michigan. And so we really have a burdensome government. I think the last General Motors plant that was built in the state of Michigan was built here in Lansing and took over 84 governmental approvals in a year and a half. And so we've got to streamline the permitting processes, because South Carolina can do the exact same thing with the Benz plant that they built down there 3 years ago. They were able to get that permitted in less than 6 weeks. And so we have to reduce the cost of government, and then we have to streamline the permitting process.
Sure. Okay. How about it, Representative?
Well, I was over at Lafarge, their cement plant, over in Alpena on Monday before coming down to Lansing on Tuesday for a series of meetings. And going over there and seeing that operation, it's the oldest continuous use cement plant in North America. And they're looking at a permitting process that they've got all the details worked out with EPA, with DNRE, and they continue to wait for their permit. Now, this is $55 million worth of upgrades to protect the environment. It doesn't increase their capacity or make them more money or anything like that. It's strictly to protect the environment. The details have been worked out. They're still waiting for the permit, and they need to have it by January 1st. Now, will it shut them down January 1st? They said, well, not really. But they said if they don't have it by the end of January, and it doesn't look hopeful at that point, then they are talking about 210 jobs gone.
What's hamstringing it? What accounts
They're
for something
not
like
sure.
that?
It's the usual thing. Oh, we're short-staffed, all of that. But if they've met the criteria from the DNRE, from the EPA, they don't know. We don't know. I was there for a cement symposium. We toured the plant, learned more about it. I mean, that's a major employer of both locals and contractors from around the state. They're frustrated. They had everything worked out, and this is another example of why we need to streamline and reform how we do permitting in the state of Michigan.
I don't think that there's any other side of the argument to, in a case like that. It's everybody is behind that sort of thing.
And and it's pretty simple. They're frustrated. When we heard about it, there were a number of legislators who were over there. We became frustrated. It's just another classic example of $55 million in upgrades being held up just because of some bureaucratic mess.
And people don't care where things are made anymore, as much as you like to say that. And so we've got to make the United States and Michigan attractive for world investment.
How do you do that, though, without paying people $3 an hour, frankly? Because we're competing against workers in China, in the developing world, that are making way less than an American worker.
Well, it's the quality of the goods. The cement plant there in Alpena, when Lafarge bought it back in 1986, they were looking at just closing it down. I think they were buying up excess capacity and such. But they realized the terminal network on the Great Lakes and the quality of the cement that they produce there is world class. It's a very fine grade. There's high demand for it. They can get a premium price. So again, it's doing that same thing. When we look at the workers here in Michigan, as well trained as they are, the experience they have, it's putting a premium on the products. Yeah, we're not going to be able to turn out, widgets that you can crank out in India or China. That's not what we're looking for. But, that more skilled manufacturing, and we still have that here, and we're seeing some glimmers of hope. We just have to make sure that it's a permitting process, a tax structure that encourages that kind of research development and then manufacturing.
Yeah, I just go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, for like your listeners up north, 1110 and 1210. Here's a prime example of American competitiveness and Michigan competitiveness. Wayne and I grew up in Traverse City, and if you take a look at the Sara Lee pie plant when we were first growing up, they had approximately 1,000 employees and made 6 million cases of pies a year, and that would have been in the 70s and 80s.
And all of them delicious.
Fine dining
experience. Absolutely, yeah.
And Mr. Shields, and we are more than welcome to come up and we would sample those, sir. Today they have about 650 employees and make 27 million cases a year. And that talks about the ingenuity and hard work that makes us competitive.
Sure.
And so I think, I recognize that there's certain parts of the textile trade, Wayne and I grew up in the clothing business that probably are going to have gone offshore, but there's a lot of stuff if we are allowed to unleash the bureaucrats and allow the entrepreneurs to go back to work, that we can get people back to work at.
Well, I think I join everybody in saying that, I hope you're right. because clearly we need it. That unemployment rate of 13%. Well, how did you guys react to Congress last week denying the extension of unemployment benefits?
Well, 2 years is a long time. Now, of course,
yes,
we're in a unique situation here in Michigan that, unfortunately, we've been in a recession for the past 8-9 years that puts us in a little bit different category. But it's awfully tough to keep saying, here's another 26 weeks and such.
I mean, if you take a look at your company, Citadel Broadcasting, okay, now they pay into this Michigan Unemployment Fund, and we are overdrawn, I think, upwards of about $3 billion. And so it's going to take at least, they're saying, between 3 to 5 years to get us back to a balance that we're not borrowing money from the federal government to maintain those. And I don't have the exact figures. And so if the aspect of the expansion puts a huge burden on your company and every other small business in the state.
All righty then. Governor Snyder, there's some talk he's going to stay at his house in Ann Arbor and not move into the governor's mansion. You guys know anything about that?
Those are family decisions.
Sure,
I know when our Governor Milliken lived up north in Traverse City, would stay in Lansing during the week and drive back home. And so those are personal decisions that work for his family.
Yeah. That guy, he was a great guy, Governor Milliken. I'll tell you, I back in the day when I was just breaking in, he was the governor, and every year he'd have a Christmas party for the media at the governor's mansion. And I'll tell you, it was a pretty impressive place to take your date.
Yeah.
Mine was just scared to death. Yeah. I said, no, he's a really nice guy. Yeah. It's Governor Milliken.
He's a fine gentleman.
Yeah, absolutely.
We worked with him on the Snyder campaign, and Wayne and I've known him for a long time.
Absolutely. How's he doing these days?
Wayne, we saw him at the Snyder rallies.
Yeah, he's fine. He's mid to late 80s, but he's still just cranking along. I mean, he's not necessarily the same ball of fire, but he and Mrs. Milliken, they're out and about. They're doing things. They're a little more low-key. They were never flashy to begin with in Traverse City. But
how does he feel about the way things are going in our state these days?
I've talked to him on several different issues. I mean, it's tough. We were chatting about one time on a separate issue, but I was saying how I wish I had 300,000 to 400,000 auto workers coming back to work like he did in the late 70s, early 80s during that recession. But as Jason mentioned earlier, that auto manufacturing is gone, so it puts us in a little more tight circumstances there. And he admitted that it's a lot more difficult today running the state than it was when he was there. Not that he didn't certainly face his challenges, but of course technology, how things move so quickly, et cetera. But
I think he's also very melancholy on Detroit.
Yeah.
So you asked about turkey recipes. I usually shoot turkeys, and so that's what we won't be doing that at my in-laws' house, but we prepare those for New Year's Eve.
Well,
turkeys.
Outstanding. All right.
Congratulations on the fork you got.
That was great,
Way
man.
to go.
That was good. Did you get out deer hunting, Wayne?
No. No. I go down and shoot my meat down at Glenn's meat section down there on 8th Street.
Yeah, I got a nice 3 points. So.
Thanks for dropping by, guys. I appreciate it. And all right, thanks for the chat. State Senator Jason Allen of Traverse City and State Representative Wayne Schmidt, also of Traverse City, joining us here in studio. Happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We'll take a break. Be back with more here on MPS in the Morning. Or in this case, Rich Kincaid filling in for Michael Patrick. Hard to believe it's my last day. This is my 4th show, and it's just flown by. We're running out the clock on this thing, and I'm glad sometimes people don't get to see what happens behind the scenes, because I just looked over at the clock and it was reading 3 seconds, 2 seconds, and that's the clock, which indicates when I have to start talking, and I'm just sort of standing here casually leafing through papers and whatnot. I'm like, hey, I'm on the air. So that's part of the fun of it all, isn't it?
It is. Behind-the-scenes magic.
Yeah. Hey, what makes you happy on Thanksgiving? Specifically, that is to say, what are you thankful for on this Thanksgiving 2010? Give us a call at 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Share your thoughts on what it is you are thankful for this Thanksgiving. I'll give that some thought. I'm, as always, as our... what's the word I'm thinking of? There's the politicians who are with us, the state senator and the state representatives. So they're thankful for family, and I am too. But what else? I'm thankful Michigan State's 10-1. It's been a fun year. I mean, no
Thankful
matter
there's football on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. Oh well, always. But I'm thinking, no matter how things turn out on Saturday, this has been the most fun to watch Michigan State team that I can remember. And I go back to that game against Notre Dame with the play in overtime where they go for the fake field goal and win the football game, because I'm up in the press box watching this thing, and I really thought they'd screwed up the play. I didn't realize that this was a planned deal. I thought a mistake had been made, and now it's going to be a fire drill down there. And then you see the tight end wide open, taking that pass and running it in, and the ball game's over. I mean, that was just a thrill. It's a great football game. Told my daughter, who doesn't go to many, that she had just seen as good a football game as she will ever see. The Wisconsin game was phenomenal. State went for it 3 times on 4th down in that football game, made it twice, and I really think they made their season early in the 4th quarter of that game. You'll recall they were underdogs to Wisconsin. Wisconsin was ranked higher in the standings than was Michigan State, and Wisconsin scored early. State did a great job in 2 areas, stopping the Wisconsin running game, which is their bread and butter, and also being able to run the ball against the Badgers, which people, frankly, did not expect State would be able to do. I think Wisconsin was 3rd or 4th in the nation against the run coming into that game, but State ran the ball on them. But when Wisconsin scored early in the 4th quarter to make it a 2-point game, longtime Spartan fans had to be thinking, here we go again. It's going to be another case where Michigan State, blows the thing in the end, because we've seen it happen. But in this case, Michigan State drove 86 yards or thereabouts in 14 plays and took 8 minutes off the clock, scored on a 4th down play, made the 2-point conversion, just everything. And it was, and right then, you're thinking that's a different Michigan State team. You had the great game at Northwestern, where they were way behind in the 4th quarter, and they ran the fake punt to keep a drive alive that they needed to keep alive, to get points on the board. And they came back and they won that football game when it appeared all was lost. And then the game against Purdue last Saturday, when they were 15 points down in the 4th quarter and came back to win that ball game. It's just been a great Saturday after a great Saturday all year long, and they're 10-1, and so I guess I'll be thankful for that.
Wonderful.
All right, let's go to the phones, and it's Kathy in Lansing joining us with her thoughts on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Kathy.
Hi. Do you know what? I give thanks every single day. All right? I think that's important. I think just giving thanks for being an American, like the other gentleman said, that's one of the most important things. But I also am thankful that I still have a roof over my head. Mm-hmm. And I make that a daily activity, like, oh, thank you that I am not in Tent City or...
Sure, yeah.
And I think the more people recognize their blessings, the happier they are in any circumstance.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's is this something you do at the start of the day?
Well, I have a very unusual lifestyle because I have physical impairments. But so the start of my day could be 3 a.m, mm-hmm. But it's just an ongoing thing.
Sure.
However, the other thing is the fact that, no, I'm not going to have a Thanksgiving dinner, and yes, I have a family, but they're scattered all over the country, and no, I'm not going over the woods and through the river or whatever. But it's the attitude of the heart. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And you just be thankful all the time.
There you go. Kathy, thanks for the thoughts. We appreciate that. You've put a smile on Amanda's face and a smile on everyone's face, I'm sure. Thanks very much for your Thanksgiving thoughts. You can share yours at 888-900-9966. And I've already said I'm going to be thankful for the football season Michigan State has had this year, in addition to all the things we're always thankful for. My wife, in my case, my daughter, and, of course, our cat, Ruski. Who's, best cat ever. What can I tell you? All right, we'll take a break. Be back with more here on MPS in the Morning. And if you stay tuned until Monday, indeed, you will have Michael Patrick. He'll be back on the show on Monday as he completes his vacation. Rich Kincaid filling in, having a good time doing so. And it's movie time right now here on MPS in the Morning, joined by Ron Van Timmeren from Celebration Cinemas. Ron, I'm sure that Harry Potter is continuing to dominate at the box office, but this is Thanksgiving weekend. Is it a big weekend for holiday movie releases, or is that a little bit further down the road yet?
No, this is a huge weekend.
Yeah.
That Friday after Thanksgiving may be the single biggest retail shopping day of the year. It's also the biggest movie day of the year, and 6 new releases in theaters today, but I don't think any of them have the horsepower to beat out Harry Potter, which is $125 million on its first 3 days, tracking to do another $60+ million over the holiday. But Walt Disney's got something to say about that. Their new animated movie is called Tangled, getting great reviews in the Detroit Free Press today. Tom Long gave it an A and said it's the best movie since Little Mermaid, Lion King, all of those. Included in this movie, Brothers Grimm retelling of the story of Rapunzel. Also new today, Burlesque, starring Christina Aguilera, Cher, Stanley Tucci. That's rated PG-13, a good musical in the vein of, say, a Moulin Rouge or Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the romantic comedy Love and Other Drugs with Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway. A good old action-packed movie with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back doing his action R-rated thing. Billy Bob Thornton co-stars in that one. And then another couple of interesting movies based on real-life stories, 127 Hours, directed by Danny Boyle and starring James Franco, that true story of that Utah hiker who was trapped by a rock that crushed his arm. He was stuck there for 5 days, the story of how he survived, and a very fascinating movie with a possibility for a Best Actor nomination for James Franco. And then Sean Penn and Naomi Watts in Fair Game, the story of Valerie Plame and Joseph Wilson back in the days of weapons of mass destruction, the story of how they were outed in that whole thing with Scooter Libby and all those guys involved, and a real cool drama based on that story.
Yeah, well, it sounds like there's some outstanding releases. 127 hours. I don't know. To me, it sounds like that. I'm sure it's a tremendous motion picture, but I think at the moment of truth, that'd be somewhat difficult to sit through.
Yeah, there comes a point where I think we all know the true story that dude cut off his own arm to survive, and really that's a very small part of the picture, but you're building up to that moment. It's pretty gruesome, but he was going to die if he didn't do something like drastic like that, and Danny Boyle did a good job making it more of a movie than just about that particular minute or two, and so really a good, well-done movie.
And Tangled, more of the wit that we've come to expect from these Disney. Is it a Disney Pixar movie? One of an animated deal?
It is animated. It is not Pixar.
Okay.
It's more of the traditional Disney, fairy tale come to life, but certainly a modernization of the Rapunzel story, the girl with the long blonde hair. And it's a bit of a musical, too. Alan Menken, who, of course, won Oscars for Little Mermaid and Lion King, also did the songs for Tangled. Dan Fogelman, who wrote the screenplay for Cars, wrote this as well. And really, the best reviews of any movie in the theaters right now are for Tangled.
Does it have the same kind of adult undertone that like Shrek did, where when you go into the theaters, the adults are laughing just as much as the kids?
Yeah, that's what everybody has told me, and the reviewers are saying too. Somewhere in between, say, a Little Mermaid and Shrek, they've made them PG now. Back in the day of Little Mermaid and Lion King, of course, those were G-rated movies. But Shrek really did change that formula, where a little more adult humor, if you know what I mean, something adults would understand more than kids, making it enjoyable for really all ages.
So that's a good family movie then to go see this weekend.
Right, exactly. That's rated PG, and of course we've got Megamind, which is an animated PG family movie in the theaters as well. So really a pretty wide variety of choices here. Family time is kids out of school, people off of work during the Thanksgiving break. Great time to see a family movie.
Absolutely, and I'm surprised to hear that this weekend is the busiest movie weekend of the year. I just thought everybody went out and shopped. Amanda, are you going to have time to go to a movie this weekend?
I'm going to try to squeeze one in after shopping and before heading to the wedding. We'll see if I can get either Harry Potter or Morning Glory. Those are my 2 goals for this weekend.
All right. There we go. Ron, thanks very much. Ron Van Timmeren from Celebration Cinemas, as always. Well, usually a guest on Friday, but we're treating today's show as if it were a Friday because
You guys have a great
essentially it
holiday.
is. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. So, yeah, I like. I may go see that Tangled myself. I'm still not too sure about the 127 hours. Because, but I hear it's a terrific movie.
It might be one to watch on DVD. When you're at home with some popcorn, you can stop it in between.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So, at any rate. All right, what have we got coming up? We're going to talk Spartan football at the top of the hour with Greg Johnson. So, thank everybody who's been watching us on television. Thank to our listeners on the stations who are leaving us now. And we will continue on MPS in the morning for everybody else right after this.